Last year, I was hiking in Shenandoah, Virginia. It was a planned 2-day hiking trip, myself and 2 friends. Late into the first day, one of my friends grew ill and decided to turn back. The second friend joined him, just in case it got worse. They told me to go on, and seeing as I had been looking forward to the trip, I did. As evening approached, I came upon a clearing in the forest, and there was a table. On the table, surrounded by tools and several cans of spray paint, was an elaborate dollhouse. It was large, perhaps 3 feet tall. Its walls and windows were open, as if it had just been built and was drying. That lingering smell of spray paint still hung in the air around it. On the back of the house, a photo had been affixed. It was a family picture, old, maybe taken in the 80s. Everyone in the picture looked very uncomfortable, like they didn't want their picture taken at all, or were forced to get their picture taken. Not scared, just very uncomfortable looking. I left it and continued on so that I might reach my planned campsite by nightfall. The wind had started to pick up considerably. In the distance, I heard a branch give and fall, crashing to the forest floor and startling me. I found my campsite, but was a bit unnerved by the dollhouse in the middle of nowhere. I realized I didn't want to camp out in the open where whoever was working on it might stumble upon me. I had one of those little one-person tents that just stands up tall enough for a person to lay down in. I set it up behind a thick stand of bushes, one side blocked off by a tall stand of rocks. I was glad for this because not only was I now hidden, but the rocks effectively blocked the heavy winds, which had now picked up and turned really cold as the frigid air tumbled down from the mountains at night. The night wore on, and the sound of the wind-churned forest was relaxing. I think I fell asleep right away. Have you ever been awoken by a loud sound and you're unsure of what it was exactly, but some remnant of it echoes in your mind for a moment after waking? That's what happened to me sometime later in the night. I had the sensation that someone was near. I listened intently, trying to hear over the wind. I heard a man's voice somewhere in the distance, harsh, rapid, then becoming softer. He was too far away for me to discern what he was saying, but close enough that I could hear inflection and cadence. It sounded like a crazy person scolding himself, then his voice becoming softer, answering back. As I listened, his voice grew louder and louder until I could hear his clumsy footfalls crashing toward me. He walked by where I was camped, just several feet away from the brush that concealed me. By now, my eyes had adapted somewhat to the pale moonlight, but I still couldn't make out anything more than a large, massive shape. He probably must have been around 6'6", heavily built. He was carrying something long beneath his arm. A rolled-up tent, maybe, I guessed. He was angrily talking about someone's face and how it haunted him. His voice then became childlike, and his conversation with himself turned to the topic of cheese and crackers. This dude was clearly off his rocker. That or high on something really good. After a moment, he continued on, his voice receding until I could no longer hear him. I slept little that night afterward. At first light, I booked it back the way I came, back to town. I noted that the dollhouse was not in the clearing when I passed back that way. Obviously, I was not alone that night. Whoever that stranger in the night was, I'm glad we did not meet. This is actually my stepmom and her best friend's story. I believe she told my sister and I this experience growing up to scare us out of being stupid. It was my family's stranger danger story. My stepmom, we're going to call her Macy, grew up as a kind of privileged teen in the 70s, and her mom had moved their family over here to the States from England when she was about 9. She went to a pretty nice high school in a really nice town. There, she made friends with a girl named Lily, who didn't exactly run with Macy's type of crowd. Popular, stereotypical, etc. They really hit it off, and Lily would take Macy out to do her type of stuff. Hiking, fishing, sailing. There's even a funny picture of them camping. My stepmom, though, she had that look like she just hates everything. Anyways, because of Lily's influence, the two of them would do stuff like that a good amount. One Sunday, they decided to hike some hills about an hour away. Macy put on what I'm sure were her extremely expensive hiking shoes, and the two of them drove off to the hiking trails. Lily parked in this big clearing with makeshift parking spots. You know, like a piece of wood marking the head of the space. And there were no other cars there. This was only important in hindsight. They started hiking up the hill, off the path, because Lily fancied herself as somewhat of a badass. The hike was nothing extraordinary. If you ask my stepmom, though, she would just lament for 15 minutes how sticky and buggy it was. Anyways, they reached the top of the hill, and my stepmom was done. The polished, pampered side of her was coming out, and she groaned until Lily begrudgingly said, "Okay," and they would rest and then walk down again, slower. They had been heading down the hill for maybe 10 minutes when Macy started her whining again. Lily conceded to walking down the side of the road instead of the rough hiking trail. So there they are, probably looking like a couple of tools geared up for hiking and walking down this crappy road. And after not even 5 minutes, a truck pulled up next to them. It was red and rusty and just generally looked like a clunker. The guy driving rolled down the window, and the girls looked in through the passenger side window. He had a big beard, baseball cap pulled down, and long brown hair. He greeted them and even smiled through his beard, asking if they needed a ride. Macy described this guy as charming, maybe even a little cute. Lily, though, she felt differently. She says the moment he greeted them, her hackles went up. Despite her better judgment, though, my stepmom convinced her to get into the truck. It must only be a 10-minute drive down to the car, tops. The two girls opened the passenger's door to this rusty old thing, and the guy directed them behind the seat to get into the back. They settled in, and the truck started rumbling forwards. Lily always says that was the point it hit her, what a mistake they had just made. The back seat was clean enough, but there was a rope on the floor behind the driver's seat, as well as 4 boxes of saran wrap half hanging out from under the passenger's seat. It seemed creepy and weird, but Lily didn't want to freak my stepmom out, so she just kept her mouth shut. After 10 minutes, the woods didn't look any clearer, and they hadn't seen another car the whole time. Lily asked how long he thought it would be. He said he was taking a different route down the hill and had to stop somewhere to get something first. That was it. The girls were 16, 17, and Lily didn't want to press the issue. She was scared. She can remember his hair because she was sitting behind him. He looked like a woodsy guy, but his hair was super tangled and dirty. She noticed crusted mud on his collar and tried to find something identifiable about him, but just got scared the more she picked up on little details. He was young-ish, strong-looking, and had a 1 foot on both of them. So they didn't ask any more questions, and he didn't offer any more information as they drove on silently. Several minutes after that, they reached a tiny shack or log cabin. It was right there in the clearing of trees. There was an old stump where someone had been chopping wood and a huge axe stuck into the log. Lily was definitely on high alert now. The guy turned off his truck and slipped out of it, saying, "I'll be right back. Don't get out." And he disappeared into the house. Lily tried to talk to my stepmom about how she was incredibly uncomfortable, but she mostly just dismissed it. Lily started begging, increasingly freaked out, and finally put her foot down, demanding Macy exit the truck with her. So they both got out and walked around the front of the vehicle. The house was about 50 yards in front of them. Why this guy would have left two young girls in the truck alone while going into this little house is beyond me. And they wandered around, looking at it hesitantly. If this guy was really decent and just trying to give them a ride, it would be super rude to just run off, right? My stepmom had this strict upbringing when it came to manners and a public persona, and she saw it as an issue of that nature. So she actually started to head back to the truck, opening the front door to climb in behind the driver's seat again. Lily was mad and followed her to yell at her some more. That's when they saw it. On the driver's side floor, half hidden under the seat, there was a big hatchet. It had dried red-brown stains covering the blade and stuck to the floor under it. Lily understandably now lost it when seeing this. Even my stepmom started getting hysterical. They decided that leaving was by far their best option at this point and just booked it off to the side of the property into the trees. They bumbled around in the trees for a little while until Lily was fairly confident they were on their way back down the hill. My stepmom cried all the way down. Lily felt bad about it, but was also completely freaked out that he would hear it and kept trying to calm her down. When they finally got back down to the bottom and saw the old wooden fence that surrounded the original parking lot, they were relieved. But as they got closer, they saw it. The truck. It was parked on the other side of the gravelly makeshift lot, just sitting there, facing the other way innocently. They couldn't see if anyone was in it, and of course, Macy wanted to run for the car, but Lily was super hesitant. She managed to calm my stepmom down, saying she wanted to wait before running out into the open to see what was out there. Remember, this is the 70s, no cell phones. There was no ranger station or anyone around either. The parking lot was big and empty and open, and who knows what would have happened if they decided to go for it. Thankfully, Lily convinced my stepmom to chill, and the two of them hunkered down against a big tree, hidden by bushes and other trees. They waited it out for what seemed to be a couple of hours, when dark started to fall. All the animals started coming out and making noises, and my stepmom, predictably, started getting antsy about this and bothering Lily, who was tired and moments away from giving in. She was just planning their dash to the car when they heard a clunk. Across the twilight-lit lot, they watched as one of the back doors to their car swung wide open. And there he was, the bearded guy, sliding his way out of the back seat. He got out, shut the door, looked around at the surrounding woods for several moments, and then walked back to his truck. The truck lumbered past their car and out of sight. Several minutes after watching him drive away, they sprinted to their car as fast as they could, jumped in, and peeled out before they'd even shut the doors. If this guy is still alive, he's really old. But still, let's just not meet. My friend was solo hiking the Appalachian Trail. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is a fairly popular trail, and there's a whole community built up around it, with beer and food made available at popular camping spots. In fact, another friend met his wife while he was solo hiking the trail. So knowing about this sense of community, my friend believed that she would be safe on her trek. For the first 3 or 4 nights, she camped with different groups of people she met along the way, and everything was fine. They camped and told stories, drank beer and smoked, made s'mores. You know, the cliché camping activities. The first night she ventured off to camp alone, she decided to stop and camp at a spot without anyone nearby, and it was kind of weird. She was a little nervous, but wrote it off as nerves, and the fact that she'd had such a good time being surrounded by people. She spends the next 3 nights camping by herself, and each night the feelings of nervousness get worse and worse. It crystallizes into a feeling that someone is watching her. She also thinks that some of her things aren't in the exact place in the morning that she left them the night before, but isn't quite sure about that. The feeling gets so real that she purposely makes her camp with other people for the next couple of nights. Feeling silly about it, she camps by herself again the following night. She doesn't know why, but the feeling is back, and it's so severe that she calls off her attempt to do solo trail in the next town. She makes it home and makes up some excuse about spraining an ankle because she really does feel so ridiculous about calling off the hike due to that feeling. A couple weeks later, she's feeling nostalgic about the trip and starts to go through the pictures of the hike on her digital camera, which she hasn't touched since she returned home. She sees the pictures she remembers taking of scenery and the people she met on her first days of hiking. Then, a picture of her sleeping in her sleeping bag, inside her tent. Weird, but someone she met must have picked up her camera and taken the picture as a joke because she can't see anything to distinguish the night or the campsite at the time. Then, more pictures of her asleep in her tent, and this time, she recognizes the campsite as one where she was camping by herself. As she flips through more and more of these pictures, she realizes that there are pictures from every site where she camped by herself, of her asleep in her tent. Needless to say, she set aside her dream of solo hiking, or anything for that matter. So it's the summer of 2013. I'm 21 and just finished my junior year in college. The second week of August, a group of my friends and I go on an 8-day camping trip. It's 7 of us in total, 4 guys and 3 girls. We're camping in a semi-remote campground in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. It was a large campground, but very few other campers were there. There were a few field sites near the front of the campground, but we purposely requested a site off in the back corner. We were completely by ourselves. During the trip, we planned a whitewater rafting trip for one of the days. We were hiking Mount Washington toward the end of the trip and thought maybe we would do 1 to 2 other small hikes, with another couple of days of just chilling by the lake at the campground. We also plan on doing plenty of drinking during the evenings. First couple of days of the trip are fantastic. Whitewater rafting was a blast. Everything's going great. So it's the evening of our 3rd day. We have a roaring fire going. We're all just hanging up at the campsite, drinking and messing around. It's around 9:30 when a disheveled-looking man walks right past our site. His clothes are kind of worn, torn out, messy, tangled hair, etc. He looks maybe in his mid-40s. This isn't weird, though. We all just think it's another camper doing a late-night evening stroll around the campground. About an hour and a half later, we see the same man walk past our site in the same direction. This time he's walking slower, almost with a bit of a limp. We're all pretty drunk at this point. I think one of us might have yelled something out to him, but he just ignores us and keeps walking. That's fine. Mildly strange, but still it's probably just someone who wants to take a long walk. We wrap up the night around 1:30 or 2. Fire's dying down, and we head back to our tents. I usually love sleeping while camping. I usually find it extremely peaceful, but for some reason, I was having trouble falling asleep this night. I get up to pee in the woods, and when I do, I see a faint light maybe around 50 to 75 yards ahead of me in the woods. It looks like a dim flashlight or something similar. For some reason, I decided I wanted to investigate. I go back to the tent. One of my other buddies is still awake, so I tell him about it. We get up to investigate, and when we do, the light is no longer on. Feeling a little unnerved, I shine my flashlight around the woods a bit, but don't see anything. So I decide maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me before, and I head back to bed. Sometime later that night, I wake up to a terrifying scream. It was Sarah, one of the girls we were camping with. I jump out of my tent as quickly as possible and nearly run into her as she's running back into her site. She's still screaming. She screams that there was a man standing in the middle of the woods. Now our whole party is awake and freaking out. I try to calm Sarah down enough to get her to explain what actually happened. She says she went to pee in the woods and saw a man from earlier just standing about 15 feet from her. She was certain it was the same guy that walked through the campsite earlier. And here he was in the woods, just standing there, still as a statue. I'm internally freaking out too, but trying to calm everyone down enough so we can actually do something as everyone's freaking out. We obviously decide to get out of there. We frantically take down our tents, basically just ripping the poles out and throwing everything into the back of our cars. Then we sped out of there. It's around 4 a.m., and we're in 2 separate cars and decide to just drive away from the campsite and try and clear our heads. Eventually, at around 5:30, we find a small diner that's open and decide to head in for some breakfast. We all have different theories about what just happened. Some of us think we just ran into a homeless guy who was camping out in the woods and was surprised by us. Some of the girls think maybe he was purposefully stalking us. Either way, obviously none of us felt safe or comfortable staying at that campground again. I head back to the front desk of the campground with 2 of the other guys. We explain what happened, and the guys at the front desk actually seemed to believe us, but said there was definitely no other campers currently that fit the description of this guy. They were insanely nice about it and actually refunded most of the remainder of our stay, which astonished me. As a group, we decided, screw it, we weren't going to let one freaky guy ruin our trip. We find another campground a good ways away and stay. Fast forward 2 days, we're hiking Mount Washington. We get up really early and get to the mountain at around 7:30 a.m. to start hiking up. We're a little over halfway up the mountain when we see the very same guy hiking down, though this time he looks much better. His hair isn't crazy, his hiking clothes are relatively clean, and we're all just frozen. A few of us let out a surprised scream. He just strolls past us with his massive grin. Luckily, there are enough hikers nearby that nothing could really happen. We decide to continue hiking up anyways, since he's headed in the opposite direction, and hope we just never encounter him again. We did finish the hike and luckily didn't see him. And after that, we did decide to cut the trip short, just by a couple of days. Looking back on it, we've all come to the conclusion that we were likely being stalked in some way. If it was just some homeless guy in the woods near the campground, what the hell is he doing hiking down Mount Washington a couple days later? It's a pretty unnerving and bizarre experience, for sure.